All right, we are live, it says on the screen. So, hello everyone. Welcome to, I think this is the fourth episode of Now Written. I can't believe I've been this consistent that I've actually done 4 in a row, which is great. But I am very excited to have with me today Lisa Kerr from Evinova. But I'm not going to do like a formal introduction for Lisa. I'll let Lisa introduce herself. But the reason why I wanted Lisa on these chats, and I think she was one of the first names that came into my head, was just that Lisa is so authentic, one of the realist, is that even a word, people that I have come across on LinkedIn. So I've been a fanboy from months, maybe even years now, but reading your poetry, reading about your posts about mental health and just about the industry, and I think you're so authentic, and that's why I'm very excited to have you on this call or meeting or live, whatever we want to call it. But Lisa, do you mind just giving a brief introduction into who you are?
Sure, thanks. And thanks Ashish for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So I'm Lisa Kerr. I am a scientist by training, so I have a PhD in chemistry, and I have spent 23 and a half years in the employment of AstraZeneca, and over the last 2-3 years been with Evinova, our health tech spin out from AstraZeneca. I'm a scientist by training, but that's probably not really what I do. I got very much into diversity, inclusion, and lived experience through my own mental health struggles and founding of AstraZeneca's employee resource group for mental health, which is called Safe Space. And that really led me on a path towards patient engagement, finding that role where I could bring the human aspect, lived experience, together with the science and the technology that enables us to contact patients in so many different ways versus traditional pathways. So yeah, I'm a woman of many things, including writing poetry when I feel the need to express things that otherwise don't fit on a LinkedIn post.
Oh, I love it. I think I was saying to you earlier on, it's just, LinkedIn is such an echo chamber. Everyone is saying the same sort of thing. And then just to have that person coming in and just break it down, and I love it. I love your posts, and keep doing what you do. So I thought you touched upon your own sort of personal mental health journey. Do you mind just sharing about what that looked like, and what that journey was like, maybe as a woman? I don't know if it's very different to being a man, and how was that for you?
So when I was growing up, I was always the smart kid, right? And quite an introvert. And that sort of developed into an unhealthy sort of perfectionism streak. So I struggled, I think, as I got older with the expectations that were on me, and they began to manifest in early adulthood with depression. And I kind of dealt with that off and on with the odd period of counselling and stuff like that until I had what I call my fall off the cliff edge of life moment. So I was 33. I was a mum to Hannah and James, who were 4 and 1 at the time, and going through a divorce, and also a reorganisation at work. And I think I said it on a LinkedIn post. Somebody told me I just needed to pull my socks up, and I was like, I don't even know where my socks are. Like, I'd done that and stood myself back up so many times. The final straw broke, and I had an episode of what my psychiatrist told me at the time was moderate severe depression. When I was better, he told me it was severe. And I was an outpatient at the Priory 3 days a week for a period of about 6 weeks, and then that sort of gradually went off over the next couple of months down to 1 day a week. But if I hadn't have had custody of my 2 children, they probably would have had me in as an inpatient. That's where I was. So from a functioning senior leader in pharma to somebody who couldn't string a coherent sentence together, struggled to get out of bed. You know, I think I make a bit of a thing on LinkedIn about my various hair colors. But I didn't blow dry or straighten or do anything with my hair for like 6 weeks. Like I was a completely different person. And that experience changed me in so many ways. It made me really, really grateful for those other people who spoke out about mental health. So one of my colleagues at work had been really open in the office about his struggles. And he did the thing where kind of maybe a few weeks before I had that fall off the cliff edge moment, it said to me, "Are you all right?" over the coffee machine. I'm like, yeah, yeah. And he's like, "But are you?" And I actually answered him. And then when I had that moment, and I'm like, I'm really not well. I don't know what to do. I haven't got capacity to understand what I need to do. I rang him and I said, "Chris, I'm not well. Help." And he did. And he, you know, basically went through, you phone your GP, you tell them you need a referral to the Priory, you phone out, you tell them they've got the referral, you phone the Priory, you tell them that's coming through, we'll get an appointment within a week. Because I'm so lucky through my work with AstraZeneca that I have access to private healthcare. And I know that's a huge privilege that I have that many others don't have access to. And that was literally life-saving. And so kind of when I came out the other end of that journey, and medication was a part of that, therapy was a huge part of that, my children were a huge part of that. You know, one of the core tenets of kind of recovery from depression is behavioral activation. So simply by the act of doing something, you begin to feel better about yourself. And every single day I had to do stuff for them. I couldn't have given a monkey about me at that time, but I did care about them. And every single day they made me smile, they made me laugh, they equally made me tear my hair out, particularly my son James, who you would not believe it if you met him today, but he was an absolute terror as a toddler. He was adorable or the devil, nothing in between. But when I came out of that, you know, I felt so grateful for the support I had, and that I'd known someone who knew how to point me in the right direction, because otherwise I'd have been lost. And that then kind of became my mission going forward, is to help people know what's there to support them and to help them to get access to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think shout out to, was it Chris? Because I think we all need someone like that in our lives. And you know, you may notice something, and I'm probably like, I do this, but I go, "Are you okay?" They go, "Yeah, I'm fine." I'm like, as long as you're sure, and but I won't do that second prompt. And I think that's the thing that may have given me a bit of confidence to speak up, I think. But that's good. I mean, what was that like though? Because that sounds like it was a long-term sort of recovery. I don't know what kind of language to use.
Yeah, absolutely. Recovery process. Yeah.
What was that like from a work perspective then? Because that, and no reflection on any company obviously, but how was that for you personally?
So work were great when I went to see the psychiatrist and I had a psychiatrist opinion. I think they basically signed me up for 3 months and said, you know, don't even think about it for that period of time, which was really important, I think, to give me the space to get better. And I had a really understanding manager at the time. When I came back to work, So I was working full time, and I did have a phased return. And I remember sitting there with occupational health and saying to the lady, like, I don't feel like I can come back full time. I'm not totally well yet, and even just coming into the building is giving me the shakes and anxiety. Um, I don't feel like I can be back full time, but equally, I don't feel like I'm in the headspace where I could go, oh, do you know what? I'm going to go part time now because I'm a single mum and I need the money and then probably need to assess the financial implications, but my head's still mashed. And she was actually brilliant. We extended some of that kind of phase in time, but also organised me a 6-month temporary part time contract so that I didn't have to come back full time, but didn't have to make that permanent decision. And it, coming back into the building after, I was really for about 4 months was really hard. And I made a choice when I came back about what to say about things, and I decided to be open about it, and probably shocked a few people. But then the more I talked to people about it, the more I uncovered this, what another fabulous colleague, one of my colleagues in HR, called it, this dirty underground network of people who suffered with mental health conditions but didn't feel safe to talk about it at work. It was not something you admitted to. And I thought, well, crikey, that's a bit rubbish. If somebody hadn't talked about it at work, for me, I don't know where I'd be. And lots of other people that they've spotted the signs, the little tiny signs, and found each other. So kind of when I came back to work, that's what I began to see. I think the other thing from a work perspective is some people are really supportive. And there have been other people in my work life who, when I've taken time out previously, because this has been it's a condition I live with, and I get increasingly better at managing it the more I learn about myself. But sometimes when multiple things collide, I've ended up, off for a month or so. And some people see that as a risk. And they're not willing to give you the opportunities that you deserve. For me, the risk of keeping quiet outweighs the risk of speaking up.
I agree. I mean, I think it's one of the last, in the professional environment, potentially the last sort of where that bias is allowed, if that makes sense. I don't know if it's not legally allowed, but I think it's quite prevalent in quite a lot of different companies or small, big, large. Yeah, it's something that I've struggled with and have had for my own my career, where I've struggled with mental health challenges and the workplace at the time. This is obviously pre my own businesses would, when are you coming back, putting that pressure on me. And I'm like, I just need a week, 2 weeks, whatever it be, doctor's notes, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, and then when I was back there, the assumption was I couldn't handle anything. I wasn't put up for promotions and so on. So yeah, it's part of the journey, really. But I probably wasn't as, I won't even say brave, because I think what you're doing is just the right thing to do. And yeah, I should have been more verbose. And I think, well, I'm learning from you, so I'm going to definitely be more verbose on this sort of stuff.
And it's hard. It's hard and deeply personal to talk about. I think one of the things, in a way, that, this is going to sound weird, that helped me to talk about my mental health was that, having been like Little Miss Perfectionism, I'd already had one big failure, which was my marriage, and that was public. And it was my decision to end that relationship. So I had to kind of already put my hand up and go, I got that wrong. Got two beautiful, amazing children out of it, so I don't regret it from that perspective. But almost that failure gave me the permission to admit that I'd failed in other areas. Not that having mental health challenges is a failure, but like, you can only push me so far, and then I will break. It's like, you stress test any material.
Absolutely.
There is a certain point at which it breaks. And for me, work can be really massively full on, and that's fine. If that is massively full on and extremely uncertain, and so is my personal life, and the two things collide, that's where that's where I know my danger zone is. So, I think I posted a couple of weeks ago that I reached out to talk to my therapist. There's been quite some uncertainty at work, and some stuff going on in my family as well. So I reached out to her because I'm like, there's a lot going on in my head, and I need help to sort out what I think, and then I can go forward. And I know myself well enough now to know when my thoughts start to spiral and go, I need to do something about it before that spiral hits out of control. But that's a 20-year journey.
Yeah, no, 100%. And also the perfectionist sort of element, I think, is quite prevalent in people with strong careers, and who've gone. I was very much like that. I was like working ridiculous hours, and I was like, it's got to be perfect, it's got to be perfect. But yeah, it takes a toll. It really does take a toll.
There's an amazing book which I actually read when I was in the Priory, which is called Depression: The Curse of the Strong. I forget who the author is now, but that is, I think, when workplaces have biases against people with mental health, they are running the risk of rejecting those people who are the people who are willing to carry the most, and to go places where other people don't go or aren't willing to go, because they are so strong, and they break because they don't learn how to say no. So people who kind of sail merrily on through life are often the people who care less about what other people think, or are less conscientious, and are more interested in what it looks like than what it actually is. So the people I know, and I've got a lot seem to have a lot of friends with mental health issues or neurodiversity. I don't know what that says about me. One of my friends went to me, Lisa, are you sure you're not just a little bit neurospicy? I'm like, maybe. But they're all so interesting. They're not the people, like you said, the same old stuff doesn't come out of their mouths, and I'd much rather be working with and talking with those people. And if they disappear for a month every now and again, then the world carries on, because it does.
100%. Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that one. If you don't mind, I wouldn't mind asking you about your son James. You posted about his journey a couple of times. If you're comfortable, do you mind just sharing? What was that like for you going through your journey? Because it seems like there may have been a bit of overlap. I don't know but I'll let you share.
Yeah. So apart from being a terrible toddler, James has always been the sweetest boy. He still is. But I remember around about the time he was transitioning to high school, he said, I don't know how I feel about it. I just feel like I'm really different from other people, and I don't want to be, but I am. And he couldn't really express what that meant. And over the next few years, various things came to light. So most of these conversations happen in the kitchen, like they always do, over making a ham sandwich. But he turned around to me one day and said, I've got something to tell you, but I'm not sure how you're going to take it. And I'm like, okay, well, like, you know, I'm here for you, whatever. And he's like, yeah, it's only going to be a problem if you're homophobic. And I'm like, well, you know, I'm not homophobic. So, okay. And he's like, I think I'm bisexual. I'm like, cool. Do you want to go and help? Do you want to, you know, now you finish your making your sandwich for lunch, do you want to go and get Chinese for tea? And he's like, yeah. And so we had a chat about it. And that was cool. I mean, you know, I do have pictures of him as a youngster dressed up in a tutu. And, you know, we do make all the family jokes about like it would have been obvious, but I wasn't really surprised. And you know, I've been lucky in my journey in kind of diversity and inclusion. It was really RAZ Pride group that kind of really got me interested in that space, and sort of helped me along to starting Safe Space. So I'd been on the Stonewall training and had half a clue about some of this stuff, which was really helpful. But what was more challenging was kind of about a year later. He said, "Mum, I think I'm trans," and I couldn't help it. But my reaction, you know, my gut reaction was different, and my face fell. And he immediately was like, "You're anti-trans, blah blah blah," and I'm like, "I'm not, but whoa, that's a whole other thing." And it's not that I don't support anyone's sexuality or anyone's gender identity, but I know how hard that path is because I've learned stuff in the community. And you know, he was 13 and didn't know what that meant. And it took a couple of months for us to really rebuild that relationship. And he presented as female for about a year or 18 months. And then he didn't. You know, we went down the whole kind of signing up for gender counselling. I mean, he wouldn't have actually got seen until he was an adult anyway, which is just insane. And there was some very, very scary things happening with withdrawal of prescriptions and services around that time, which was really frightening. But what turned out to be, I think, a partial root cause of this was he was actually sort of in between the sort of bisexual and the trans thing. He was attacked by a boy at school and bullied, and that boy had touched him inappropriately, and it sent him into this spiral of everything to do with boys I do not want, I reject, all of that. And kind of when that finally came out, we got him some counselling to help him deal with all of those emotions, and he was self-harming at the time because he just didn't know how to cope, which is heartbreaking to watch your child do that to themselves. But credit James, it turns out this lad had also been accused of sexting another girl, and was we went to school, and they said if James would be willing to report it to the police, it would help us massively and also help us to ensure James' safety. And he was willing to do that. And the boy was convicted of assault. And he just got kind of a warning for it. It wasn't a serious one, but I was so proud of him for standing up for that and for saying this is wrong, and not just for me. Like, I think that warning meant that if he got any other, you know, if he was convicted of anything else, then he would have spent time in a youth detention. And you know, we muddled our way through that together, and I think that him finding the strength and the support within the family, not just me, like, you know, my husband, or, you know, our other children were kind of all supportive of him. It was his sister that he told in the first instance before, like, then she kind of came and sat with him while he told me. So, you know, she was absolutely his first port of call, his first safe space. He's now about just finishing the first year of A levels. He's a proud gay man. That's how he describes himself. He's still dealing with issues. I think this has affected his self-esteem, and it's going to take him some time to work through. But he's definitely getting there. He said to me the other day, he's like, I seem to be quite popular now, because he was always kind of the weird kid and the one, like, you know, that didn't have all the friends. And I'm like, that's because everyone's grown up now enough to kind of see how cool you are. And I'm like, you're cool, you're different, you're funny, and you're kind. And like, that's a pretty cool combination. I remember when he said to me, like, I am different, back when he was, you know, 11, saying to him, I know that this is going to be really hard, and this next period in your life is going to be really tough, but I promise you it is going to make you the most fantastic, amazing person. Like, you are so amazing. He's already set up and closed his first business. He closed that to focus on his A levels, and he restarted it. He was a skinfluencer, as they call it, so doing Korean beauty content, and I've been the recipient of much of that skincare for free, and he even got paid content and paid ads.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool. So there's definitely a little entrepreneur in there, but I'm so proud of him. And I think, you know, one of the other things that I'll just share, and I'm proud of us as a family, is he said once, when he was kind of struggling with the whole trans thing and people's reactions to it and what was going on at school, and he said, I actually feel sorry for those people who are being like this to me. He said, because it's clear that that's the way they've been brought up. He said they haven't got a family like we have, and that they don't understand these things. And I was like,
that is amazing. I mean, for a young gentleman to be thinking like that is, well, you've done something right, Lisa. There, you know, your perfectionism is working. He sounds like an amazing young man. And I look forward to, hopefully he gets back into this influencer thing, because I need as much help as possible. Maybe not Korean makeup might not work for me, but yeah, it'll be amazing.
I mean, the glass skin thing is, you know, that's doable everywhere. But
fair enough. We've got a couple of comments actually coming, which are nice. So firstly, thank you to Matt, who shared the Amazon link to the depression book that you mentioned. So people, please go out and order it. And one from Rail Marie, who is saying, thank you so much for your vulnerability. It's admirable. So when you returned to work, did you perform the same duties as before?
Yes, I did. I I think when I was kind of just before going into that period, because I was going through a reorganisation, I had kind of two job offers on the table. One was a kind of the amazing global job, and one was it's in the office in Macclesfield job. And I took that job because I knew I needed to keep my feet on the ground. So I was managing a team of analytical scientists, and I came back into that role with, you know, lots of people who knew what they were doing and were supportive of me. And actually, you know, I came back in on 4 days a week, and after that trial period, stayed on 4 days a week. Until several years later, when I got a promotion and the kids were at school. So yeah, I stayed in the same role, but I actually stayed part-time.
Cool. That's good to hear. And then I'm just conscious of time, but I really wouldn't mind touching upon the mental health resource group that you set up, Safe Space, because I think stuff like that is really important within companies and just in general. So how did you come about it? What did you do, and where did you take it? It's probably, that's a very broad, vague question, but tell me about it, basically.
So I started it when we got Workplace, which is like Facebook for work, back in 2018. And AZ Pride, I said I was part of their network just because I was like, I support this, I want to get involved. And they started posting on there, and I was like, fantastic, following all of that. And I was like, there must be a mental health group on here. And I looked, and there wasn't one. So I thought, well, I'll start one. So I made a page, came up with a name, I invited 50 people and posted a video of me talking about my own mental health. And I remember feeling physically sick when I did that. I was like, oh dear God, is that career suicide I've just committed? And it absolutely wasn't. So that kind of grew. We did an event for Time to Talk Day at the Macclesfield site and got lots of people together talking about mental health. And somebody, I think it was actually from one of the other ERGs, was like, Lisa, you're doing loads of good stuff here, but it should be an ERG, and there is a formal process for that. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're probably right. And we went down that process, and we had a fantastic sponsor who we didn't go and ask her. She was just a champion. Juliet White, who's I think she's now chair of the board for East Cheshire Hospice, and whenever we asked her for money for cakes, which was the vital important, she was always like, yeah, you can have whatever money for, needed venue or money, she would find it from one of her budgets. So she was our sponsor. So and she also had come from previously HR, so we had all the network. So when it came to the kind of proposal, it was a case of, they read the proposal, and it was yes, absolutely, go through. The interesting piece then is kind of how it grew. So we were in the UK primarily because we were on Workplace. It was kind of a global group, which was really fantastic. And then we started to set up separate local groups so people could do stuff in local chapters in their own countries. But COVID really snowballed this. So we'd sat down as a group and gone, how do we, elevate what we're doing and get everybody talking about mental health? And then COVID happened. And one of the things I'm most proud of in that group that we did was I posted a video when I was going through to access support of how I got to the right support, because lots of people were being misdirected. There were kind of two pathways, one for counselling, which is a 5-session only, and then there's the full mental health pathway, and people were being told that only one of them was open, and when they needed genuine longer term counselling or therapy or even psychiatric support, and weren't being told. So we made a simple flowchart that said, do you need help internally or externally? Yes, no. Is it that you just are going through a bit of a rough time and you need some support, or are you really not very well? Then here's the numbers to call. So it's all on one sheet. So if you remember me talking about my mate Chris, and he wrote it all down for me, it's basically that. Wow. That in COVID was translated into a global mental health ebook. So we then did that for every country that AstraZeneca was in. And post-COVID, we partnered with Microsoft, who have developed this now as an app in Teams. So we've got an app in Teams called Healthy Minds, which sits in your little app library in Teams. It is just the flowchart, but in every country and in every language. And you can go and check what the options are in different countries. So for instance, if you're managing somebody in another country, you can go and see what the options are there. It's dead simple. Microsoft took the framework and they said, we're happy to develop it for free because it's so easy. And are you up for sharing this with other people? And we were like, absolutely. They just need to put their own information in.
Accessible by anyone any admin on Teams can add it.
I think they I don't know whether it's open access or whether you need to ask for it, but yeah, they did it for free. Microsoft doesn't often do stuff for free, but
No.
it wasn't a techie solution.
No.
It's a nice flowchart.
But it's just sometimes the simple things that can help people, you know. Yeah, this is. I think we need to have another chat. Well, you know, maybe I'll see if I can get you. You're a busy woman, but I think we've got. You know, Matt has also just said he's really appreciative of how open you've been, and it will encourage others to seek help. And I do agree with that. I think it's important that we share these kind of things. But yeah, next time I want to get into like maybe the more businessy side of it, like why is mental health not a consideration in clinical trials for any disease areas? I think we can really improve outcomes, retention, whatever it looks like. So it's but a topic for another day, I think. But yeah, if you're up for that, I'd love to redo that.
Yeah, I know we had plans to talk about it and time has just disappeared, but yeah, no, I'll be up to talking about that. That's easily another half an hour.
All right, brilliant. Thank you very much, Lisa. I will share your sort of LinkedIn profile with anyone who isn't connected with you. They should. Yeah, just listen to you or read you, as it were. So yeah, that would be good.
Thank you, and thanks everyone who's tuned in to listen. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you very much, Lisa. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thanks. Bye.